Is this why collectivist thinking oftentimes leads to authoritarianism?
Well, it's certainly the idea that hierarchical structures are only motivated by power certainly justifies the use of power if you think that the hierarchical structures are corrupt and should be demolished, or even that the idea of hierarchy itself is suspect and should be demolished. But these are not credible hypotheses, because the evidence that talent is unequally distributed is overwhelming, and it's more unequally distributed than people think. So, for example, if you take a typical domain of creative production, and that can be virtually anything you can possibly imagine that people might endeavor to accomplish in a creative manner, a small minority of the people do almost all the productive work. I can give you an example. So we have this questionnaire called the Creative Achievement Questionnaire that I developed with my students it's got to be just about 20 years ago, and it's become a very widely used psychometric instrument for assessing creativity. And you can think of creativity in a couple of different ways. People think creatively, and that generally means that their associations are quite loose, that they can think outside the box, that they can move laterally in their discussions, that they kind of deal at the level of abstract generality and are fluent and facile at that level. And you need people like that around when the environment is shifting rapidly around you and you need multiple potential solutions to a complex problem. That's one form of creativity. Another form of creativity is that manifested in achievement, because you can think creatively without actually ever doing anything, without accomplishing anything. It's a toss-up whether you should define creativity as a cognitive function, let's say, or as a set of accomplishments in the world. When we built this instrument, there were no measures for assessing creative achievement as such in the world. And so we put together, if I remember correctly, it was either 10 or 13 domains of potential creative achievement. And then we had experts rank order levels of accomplishment within each of those domains. And so a typical level might be 0, which would be I have no talent or training in this area, to I've written symphonies that have been performed internationally, something like that, or I've won multiple scientific awards, or I've had multiple inventions patented. Each of these would be in different domains. And then you sum across all the domains to get the total score, and it's not normally distributed. Most people stack up at 0 or 1, and a small minority of people are way out at, say, 50 or 100. So the median, 70% of people answer 0 to each question. It's a Pareto distribution, not a normal distribution. It's often called Price's Law. And Price's Law is the square root of the number of people in a creative domain do half the productive work. So if you have 100 neuroscientists publishing papers, then 10 of them publish half the papers. But if you have 1,000 neuroscientists working on a particular area, then 30 of them publish half the papers. So if you have 100 people in your company, 10 of them do half the work. And if you have 1,000, then 30 of them do half the work. And so that's a very interesting law, because it seems to govern sets of phenomena that far transcend individual creativity. So the same law, for example, applies to the number of people in cities. A small number of cities have almost all the people. It even applies to the mass of heavenly bodies. A small number of stars have almost all the mass, and a small number of planets, while in the solar system, follow exactly the same pattern. And so you can see this law pop up in all sorts of places.